Blog Talk Radio.
Alternative facts.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States government. At 12:07 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, numerous unidentified objects of unknown intent and unknown origin were detected at high altitudes over multiple locations of Earth's outer space by the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, and these objects are presumed to be some form of controlled aircraft. It is not known if more of these aircraft will arrive, or if they will attempt entering Earth's atmosphere. United States citizens are encouraged to monitor local media outlets, as more updates will follow as information becomes available. The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States government. Attacks by the undead have been reported in several states across the country. The dead are rising from their graves and are attacking the human race. At this time, it is expected that more attacks of this nature will occur in several other states in the next few hours. The intent behind their attack is unknown at this time. He has been observed that a bike or exchange of fluids is a method of transmission. This is an extremely dangerous situation if they crave the taste of human flesh. It is not known whether this event will last for hours, days, or even longer. Stay calm, as authorities have been dispatched to deal with these creatures. An all-clear siren will be sounded when this situation is under control. Pacific Standard Time, nor is detected a long-range nuclear missile launch. This missile is believed to be headed in the direction of all residents within a 400-mile radius of this area should seek a fallout shelter immediately.
Welcome to Within the Chaos with your host, Rodney the Viking Shortridge, co-host, Melinda the Raven Jackson. Want to give a big old shout out to the Facebook paranormal groups that allow us to post our shows on their pages and helping us to get the word out about all of our guests. Also, a shout out to the Connor sisters. Hats off to Misty and Ashley. They are the founders of SOS Sisters of Salem Paranormal Research Society and host of their podcast, Paranormal Party. You can find them on Facebook under Paranormal Party. If anyone would like to speak to Black Diamond Paranormal Society, BDPS, to discuss your paranormal questions or issues, go to our website at blackdiamondps.org or email blackdiamondps@yahoo.com. As always, our services are free.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. You can listen in by calling 516-387-1922, or you can go to the Vibe Radio Network website at blogtalkradio.com/Vibe Radio Network. For deep within the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for listening to Within the Chaos. My name is Rodney Shortridge, and I'll be your host tonight. along with my beautiful Raven, Melinda Jackson. First off, I'd like to give a shout out to my cousins up in Ohio, Jennifer and Joe Shortridge of 222 Paranormal. If you get a chance, check out their talk show. You can find them on Facebook under 222 Paranormal. Well, I'm sorry, everybody. We had a little technical difficulty. We're running a little behind, but hopefully I got it straightened out. But tonight our special guest is author and radio and TV host Sam Baltrusis. If I mispronounce your name, sir, I apologize. Sam is the author of Ghosts of Boston and Ghosts of Salem. He has penned 9 historical-based ghost books. He has been featured on several national TV shows, including Destination America's Haunted Towns and the Travel Channel's episode on Salem. He has served as Boston's paranormal expert on the Biography Channel's Haunted Encounters. Sam also moonlights as a tour guide and launched the successful ghost tours, Boston Haunts, and the Wicked Salem Tour. Sam is also sought after lecturer who speaks at dozens of paranormal-related events scattered throughout New England, including an author discussion at the Massachusetts State House. His book, Wicked Salem, exploring a lingering lore and legends, is slotted for release April 2019. You can visit his website at Sam, S-A-M, Baltrusis, BALTRUSIS.com for more information. First off, I'd like to, tell the folks out in California that their hearts and thoughts are with you and the families and friends that lost so many last night. These gun shootings, something's got to stop. Mm-hmm. So, and also, it's a sad time for that, but it seems like it's what we're always dealing with. But this past weekend we had the Phantom Fest, and I want to thank our speakers, our special appearances, our vendors, and everyone that came out, to support the Phantom Fest. It was the first time we did it, and it was a huge success. And a big shout out to our volunteers that work so hard, people in Black Diamond, and my daughters that, just got in there and kicked ass. Mm-hmm. And so everybody was asking me, was we going to have a Phantom Fest next year? And I can answer that now. Yes, we are. So enough of me chatting. Let's get the man on here that can talk to us about Salem. It's my honor to welcome our special guest, Sam Baltrusis. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us tonight, and I apologize for the delay.
Not a problem. So it's Baltrusis, but it's okay. It's been mispronounced on national TV, so it's like I'm used to it.
Well, I'm glad because that's one thing I keep explaining to everybody. I am from the mountains, and we see some of these names of people I've had on here. I'm like, I know I'm tearing it up, and I do apologize.
Yeah, I was on a Haunted Towns, and Porter called it Baltrusis, and I'm like, what? He's like Sam Baltrusis, and I'm like, okay, that's the southern version of it.
Well, at least you got a sense of humor. With my last name Shortridge, I've been teased with that name all my life.
Yeah, my mom is Southern, so my first name is always, instead of just Sam, it's been Sam. It's like 4 syllables.
That sounds like my grandma with my uncle. They nicknamed him Sam. His name was Pearl. But yeah, they. Well, sir, like I said, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you, being patient with us. And I'll start out by, you telling us a little bit about yourself and what started you on the path about writing historical, ghost books.
Well, I was a journalist for about 20 years, and I did a lot of investigative journalism, and I also did some, Halloween-type stories that it was something that I was always, interested in. And, of course, it was always ghost-related. And I wrote – so, I mean, my backstory is I had an experience when I was younger. My grandfather, he passed, and I saw him in apparition form after he passed, and it was something that just kind of I've always had that, that sixth sense about me, and I was interested in it. And then I wrote a story. Fast forward, 2007, I wrote a story for Stuff magazine, which is a local magazine, and that turned into a book deal, which was Ghost of Boston. And then I've written the book coming out in April is my 10th book called Wicked Salem.
Wow, you're a busy writer. Woo.
Oh yeah, they give me. So I was like, I'll just write a book once in a while, and then the people are just so into it, and I'm into it as well. It just I'm kind of churning out at least one a year, and there's been some cases where I've done more than one a year.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, yeah, what I want like to talk about is about Salem. You seem to be a real big expert on it, and the witch trials. What can you tell us? What started all this in Salem in the first place?
That's the $1 million question. We don't really know what started all of it. I can tell you what I do know. So 1692, 19 innocent men and women were hanged for witchcraft, and then one gentleman, Giles Corey, was pressed to death. There are many theories as to why this happened. You have to look at there's so many factors. In fact, it's so many factors that can make a whole book, which it did, Wicked Salem. But a lot of people think it was about money, and that could have been the case. A lot of the people that were accused of witchcraft were landowners, and it also could be misogyny. A lot of the people that were accused were women, and they were outspoken women. But there were, every individual that was executed has a different backstory, so you can't kind of lump them in all together. There's also the theory, the ergot theory, which kind of came about in the 1970s, that they were eating moldy bread, and the girls that were the afflicted girls they were kind of tripping on like LSD back in 1692. So that's a theory that it's been disproved over and over again, but I kind of revisit that theory in my new book.
Oh.
Hello, Sam.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. My first question is, what exactly is witchcraft?
What exactly is witchcraft? Well, I back in 1692, it's different than what it is modern day witchcraft. Back in 1692, if you were different in any way, you were accused of being a witch. So, of course, just to reiterate, these people that were accused of witchcraft were innocent people. They didn't, they may have been outspoken, they may have been different, but they were not witches. Witchcraft today is basically, I can tell you what it's not. It's basically not worshiping the devil, which I think a lot of people think that's what it is. In fact, it's portrayed that in pop culture. It's just basically paying homage to Mother Earth and doing rituals. And it's also it's not God. It's basically a goddess as well. So it's polytheism. It's a polytheism as well. But I don't really go into witchcraft. I go into what it's not.
Okay. Well, who was the first person to accuse someone of being a witch? That may have started the trials in the beginning.
Well, just the kind of like what we see in pop culture, like the Crucible is a perfect example. It's based on people view the Crucible, Arthur Miller's The Crucible, which was a play turned into a movie, as historical facts. It's actually based on real people, but it's historical fiction. So the genesis of the Salem witch trials involved the Samuel Parris household. He was a reverend. He was a Harvard dropout, and he had Abigail Williams in his house, who may or may not have been related to him, and his daughter Betty Parris. And Betty started having afflictions where kind of like you could say like seizures, kind of weird things had going on, and that was the genesis of that. And then Tituba, who was in the household, she was their slave, was supposedly one teaching them witchcraft, which is not true. So it started with the Reverend Samuel Parris household, which is in modern-day Danvers. And that, I also go into that in my book as well. The actual witch hunt didn't happen in modern-day Salem. It happened in the outskirts. So it happened in Danvers, happened in Peabody, happened in Topsfield.
Okay. Well, were there any confessions of anyone being a witch? And, who were they and what did they confess?
Okay. So basically, there were no the people that were executed were actually the ones that said they were innocent of witchcraft. So the ones that were hanged, and they weren't burned at the stake, which is a common misconception. But the ones that did confess to being witches were probably trying to get out of. They realized that the ones that were saying that they were innocent of witchcraft were actually getting executed. So the ones that ended up getting actually executed said they were innocent. The ones that said they were guilty probably were just trying to get more time. And there's one gentleman, Samuel Wardwell, who was executed. He did confess, but he later recanted his confession.
Well, I read somewhere that smallpox played a role in the witch trials. Is that true?
No, where are you getting information? I mean, smallpox was definitely. You have to kind of look at the times. 1692, there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of death. There was some smallpox could have played a role in it. People were getting ill from various ailments. People were dying. So it could have played a factor. Smallpox was an affliction that afflicted the native population as well. So and it decimated the natives in the area. But there was also Native American tensions in Salem and what was known as Salem at the time. That I would say that what was made probably the biggest factor was the tension between the Native Americans and the Puritans at the time.
Okay. Well, who was the girls, that accused people of being a witch?
Who was the girl? There were many girls. There were men as well. So Abigail Williams was one of they're called afflicted girls, and she was one of the afflicted girls. She was in the Samuel Parris household. Betty Parris was one. There were multiple girls that were accusers, and again, there was a lot of tension in that era, and a lot of it had to do with the Native American raids that were happening. So some of these girls, and I go into this in my book, were potentially suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. So they were, their hallucinations could have been something related to like fear and just being on edge from what was going on, around them. And some of them, like Abigail Williams, we don't really know where she came from. We think that she was related to Reverend Samuel Parris, but she may have been in a household where there was a Native American raid that was affecting what was going on in her household. So it wasn't just one; it was multiple girls.
Okay. Well, what is the swimming test?
There were no swimming tests in Salem. There were touch tests. Swimming tests was done elsewhere, and I don't know anything about that because it wasn't in my turf. There were multiple tests that were given for to test to see if you were a witch, and one of those tests was a touch test. If you there were various tests that were given. There was saying the Lord's Prayer perfectly, and the swimming test, I don't know where you got that from.
Oh, okay.
It has nothing to do with Salem.
Oh, okay. Well, what about a witch cake test? Did that have anything to do with Salem?
Okay. The witch cake was something that was given to the girls, Betty Parris and Abigail Williams. The Sibley, Mary Sibley, was their neighbor, and supposedly she suggested to possess them or affect them was to create a witch cake, which was made out of urine.
Oh, ew. That's what
Exactly. Yes, I mean, some of I just like with the questions, like if we can focus on Salem, how did you do the research?
Well, I
just do a Google search.
No, I just researched, witchcraft and witches and a little bit of Salem.
Well, I mean, just to reiterate, they weren't witches. They were innocent people. They were innocent people that were accused of witchcraft, and that's what this whole story is about, really.
Okay. Well, what I was trying to do is, get information about to let people know, witchcraft and also the facts of what happened in Salem and where people, like you said earlier, have a misconception that these witches or these people were burnt at the stake, which they wasn't.
They weren't burned at the stake. Yeah, I mean, just reiterate that they were innocent people. And imagine that. So you're in your town, and your neighbor, you don't like your neighbor. She talks too much. He's like, how am I going to get rid of that girl? They're like, oh, I know. Let's accuse her of being a witch. Like that's what happened. So it was just like it was a way to accuse innocent people to get rid of them.
Oh, okay. Well, what about did the Witchcraft Act have anything to do? Because didn't they pass some kind of laws or something about that after the trials or during the trial?
What? Witchcraft Act? I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Okay. Can the gentleman that they stacked the stones on him, they call that pressing. What can you tell us about him and his story on why they murdered him?
That's Giles Corey. Giles Corey was a stubborn old gentleman who basically owned a lot of land. He was interested in what was going on at the Salem witch trials. His wife, Martha Corey, who was his third wife, was like, honey, don't go out there. Who knows what's going to happen? Well, he goes to check it out, and he ends up getting accused of witchcraft along with his third wife, Martha. And once he was kind of brought into the shenanigans, he also falsely accused his wife, Martha, of being a witch too. So his testimony was indirectly used to accuse and execute her. So basically, he was brought in. The reason why he was pressed to death was because he remained mute. So I said earlier, the people that were executed were innocent people who said that they were innocent. They maintained their innocence when they were questioned. And then you have Giles, who didn't say anything. He just said he remained mute. And they were like, well, we have to have a special torture way to execute him because he didn't plead guilty or not guilty. And he ended up being brought in, and then he was questioned again. He remained mute. They came up with the idea of putting a pressing, and this actually came from a dream from one of the afflicted girls, Ann Putnam, and she said, "Oh, I had a dream that involving the pressing torture, and then that was sent to the magistrates who were the judges." And they brought him out to what is present-day Howard Street Cemetery. They stripped him naked. They put him on the ground, put a board on top of him, and they put rocks on top of the board. And according to legend, he said, "More weight, more weight." He was stubborn, and I do think that he was. I don't know if he said more weight or more weight, but he definitely was a stubborn man based on my research and others' research. And it was a very horrific way to die. And according to local legend in Salem, his tongue fell out of his mouth during this process. And the Sheriff George Corwin, supposedly took his cane and put the tongue back into his mouth. It was like that's such a horrific way to die. That was chronicled by Robert Mr. Califf, who definitely had an axe to grind. So it may or may not have happened. But we do know that it was probably like a 2 to 3 day process of execution, and the form of torture was a French form of torture to execute him based on the fact that he remained mute.
Wow, that's terrible.
Okay, so what were all the accusations?
What were all the accusations? They basically said that they were witches. I mean, that was the accusations. So, again, it started off with the two girls. They were saying, hey, so-and-so, that they were being bewitched by the person. So what the affliction that was happening to them was kind of like a seizure, kind of like possession. And they were, back in the era, they would blame something else, an outside force. And it was also the Cotton Mather's material that there was a spirit world happening around them that was, afflicting people. So there was the what you see, and there was also things you didn't that were unseen as well. So they brought in kind of their ideas of witchcraft from England, and they accused innocent people of witchcraft. So it was sundry acts of witchcraft was what the accusation was. I mean, that was across the board.
Okay. So did they torture these people? I mean, how did they do their sentencing, putting them in jail, and their trial, and how did all that work out? Because didn't that take a long process?
It wasn't that long. It was over a 9-month period. So some of them were accused. The first ones to be accused of witchcraft were easy prey. One of the first people was Sarah Good, who was a town beggar woman. She was pregnant when she was accused, and she had a little girl, Dorothy, who was also accused of witchcraft. And they were beggars, so they were easy prey when it comes to execution. But they weren't immediately executed. It was kind of a long drawn out process, putting them into a dungeon, and it was a witch jail. We have one in Salem that it's not standing now, but there was one in Salem. There was one in Ipswich. Each town had their own jail that was used to hold the people that were accused. And she lost her baby in jail. Sarah Good did, and she also, her daughter Dorothy, went insane in the asylum. So it was horrible in conditions. The one in Salem was subterranean, and so they would be down there. It was dank, dirty. It was also by the water, and during high tide, the North River would come into the subterranean dungeon, and it was just a horrible conditions to stay in. A lot of them were kind of going crazy in the dungeon scenario. And then they were, once it was time for them to be hanged, they were brought to Gallows Hill, which we pinpointed as it's an area called Proctor's Ledge, which is right behind a Walgreens, and and they were hanged. And the process of hanging was horrific. I mean, they put it around their neck. It could have been like a fast, easy execution, but instead they were dangling up there for a long time. And they would lose control of their bowels. It was just a horrific way to die.
That's terrible. Well, I know you touched on it earlier when you was talking about the something about the corn or wheat with the fungus. Can you elaborate on what scientists have determined that could have been?
Well, I mean, it's called the ergot theory, and the ergot theory was, and again, it's been disproved, but I talk about it again in my new book, Wicked Salem. But it just kind of give you an idea what the ergot theory was. When it emerged in the 70s when there were rampant drug use in America. So it was kind of the idea of being dosed or having an LSD trip was kind of commonplace of that era. So ergot is the idea that they were eating moldy bread, and the fungus on the bread would make them trip, and that's why they were acting the way they were acting. In the book that I talk about the ergot poisoning theory, and it's been, the local historians have disproved it, saying that it was not possible for the afflicted to be poisoned by ergot, because there's long-term effects that these girls didn't show. For example, if you get ergot poisoning, you die, or you lose body parts, like your nose will fall off or your ears will fall off, and these girls didn't exhibit that, and it was kind of like a temporary affliction. So it probably didn't happen, but I do revisit the idea that it could have been, and the theory is kind of being revisited again by historians.
Oh, okay. Well, is it true that the courts took their lands and their home of the accused, and what was the legal process for them to be able to do that?
All right. So just give you some general response to all this. So we don't know what happened because it was so long ago. There's so few records to base historical fact on it. So a lot of this is conjecture and kind of like coming up with years and years of research of finding out why it happened. We don't really know because we don't have a lot of documents to be able to come up with a conclusion. We can kind of look at what we do have and piece together a narrative. With what happened there, we can come up with a sort of an intelligent response that perhaps that the land was taken, which we do know that did happen with Sheriff George Corwin. The magistrates would come in and they would take their land, and that's the legend is that Giles Corey didn't remain mute because he wanted to actually maintain his land, but we don't know that for a fact because we weren't there. So yeah, so a lot of the people their property was taken, and some people that were accused of witchcraft and that weren't executed, their property was taken, like Philip and Mary English, who were very wealthy, and their property was, while they were in jail, their property was taken by the sheriff and by the magistrates, and it was ransacked. So property was definitely seized in 1692.
Okay.
Who was Martha Corey?
Who was Martha Corey? Okay, so Martha Corey was the third wife to Giles Corey, and she was, I would say that she was a very devout woman. She was a good woman, and she had kind of a sketchy past in the sense that she, I guess, had a child out of wedlock, and she married Giles, who was a stubborn old man, who we talked about earlier, and they married later in life. So it was kind of a marriage of convenience. And she was also very devout at her church. And she was accused, I would say, on accident by her husband, Giles. He said that, when she would say her prayers, she would say her prayers like to herself and not out loud. And I guess apparently you're supposed to say your prayers in 1692 out loud. And Martha was executed right around the time Giles was proselytized. And she was part of the final 8 who were executed. They were hanged on the same day.
Okay.
Who was the governor and governor's wife that was accused of being a witch, and what role did they play in the witch trials?
Okay. Governor Phipps, and again, this is sort of, conjecture. His wife was accused of witchcraft, and he basically said what was going on in Salem was ignoramus, and he put an end to the Salem witch trials based on a letter saying that what's going on is ignoramus, and he actually stopped executing people after the final 8. And Governor Phipps, and this is based on what we think, but and this is what we tell on tours, etc. But and they say that his wife was accused, and that was the final straw for him. But truthfully, he really was. He knew what was going on. So, we say that kind of like he's the one that stopped it all. But I think the people were starting to realize that innocent people were being accused, like Rebecca Nurse, like Martha Corey, people that were devout Christians or devout Puritans who would go to church, and they were good people, and they started realizing that what they were doing was wrong. So Phipps is kind of the person that people say actually ended the witch trials, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Well, why wasn't, the ones that were accused and found guilty, why wouldn't they given a Christian burial?
Because they were viewed as witches. So if you were hanged, for the Puritans were just cruel people. And if you were hanged, you were left up there. If you were lucky, you were cut down, and your family would retrieve your body and bury you, give you a proper burial. However, in the case, we don't really know what happened to them because we just know that we don't have a lot of documents to prove what happened to them. But we do know that Rebecca Nurse, she was cut down from being hanged, and we think that she was put on her property, which is the modern-day Danvers at the Rebecca Nurse homestead. We also, two others, we have John Proctor, who we think was also cut down and also given a proper burial on his property. And I go into that in my new book, Wicked Salem, as well. And then George Jacobs as well.
Okay. What is spectral evidence? Did they? Because I read that that was used in the trials.
Spectral evidence is made up stuff. So it's like I saw the ghost of Goody Glover sitting on the corner of my bed. A lot of the accusations were sexual in nature, so especially with women. And if you looking back at the testimony, there were also a lot of allusions to things that are kind of weird to us. Like, for example, a cow would become sick, and now someone would blame the person for enchanting that cow. Spectral evidence was the idea that a ghost of a living person, of a witch, would afflict girls or afflict people. So spectral evidence was used in court. It's made up testimony that a ghost appeared, and it was the ghost of one of the people that were accused of witchcraft.
Okay. Well, were there any other trials of witchcraft going on in America at the same time?
Not at the same time, but there was other places. I mean, for example, I focus on Salem specifically. I also focus on Boston. That's where I live. Boston, there was people accused of witchcraft as well. And this happened. There were 3 people that were accused and executed. In fact, a lot of the players that were part of Goody Glover, she was accused in 1688 and executed in what we believe is the Boston Common. And she was an Irish woman who came over, and she supposedly enchanted the Goodwin family. And she was a kind of a laundress. She would wash their laundry, and she got in a fight with the oldest daughter, Martha Goodwin, and started kind of shaking her finger and speaking to her in Gaelic, which was her native Irish tongue. And so that basically, the girl said that she was speaking in tongues. And Cog Mather was brought in, who a lot of his writings and a lot of his work was used to accuse the innocents in 1692. So it happened in Boston 3 times before it happened in Salem. So that was a precursor to that. There's also the witch trials in Connecticut too. But what we really know, like the major player in the witch trials in the States really was Salem.
Okay. Well, who was Tituba and what role does she play?
Tituba she's portrayed in pop culture as an African-American voodoo priestess. She was not. She was from Barbados. She was light-skinned, and she's kind of portrayed as like an African voodoo woman. And she did plead guilty. But she was probably being coerced to plead that she was guilty, and we don't really know much about her except for the fact that she was in the household with the girls, and she did confess. But again, I think it was a coerced confession to her role in it.
Okay.
So I just want to get what is your show about? Because it sounds like you're interested in witchcraft. But are you what do you guys focus on, the paranormal, or what do you guys focus on?
I focus on everything. I've had people on the show from actors to paranormal to sci-fi to I just delve into everything. Okay, I'm
just wondering because I usually talk about the paranormal aspects of Salem, but I know the history too. But it's just a lot of it is conjecture. It's not facts. It's hard. You don't have books to pull from what really happened in 1692.
Oh, well, if you want to talk about paranormal, then I can do that too. What areas of Salem, do you get the most paranormal activity? Because I know you're do tours there, and what are the stories of any apparitions and so forth in the area?
Well, Ghost of Salem. Have you read my books?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm just wondering if you read my books. So Ghost of Salem goes into all the hauntings in Salem. And my new book, Wicked Salem, goes into that as well. But their locations, I've been on the haunted towns. We went to a couple haunted locations, Parson Barnard House in Topsfield. A lot of the locations, there's so many that it's just hard to say, like, what are the haunted locations? They're all haunted. Anywhere in Salem you go pretty much has a haunted history to it. But, I can go into some of, I would say, like, out of the locations, I would say the burial grounds are probably the most active. Howard Street Cemetery is a very active location. In fact, it's number one in my 13 most haunted cemeteries in Massachusetts book. And that's also where Giles Corey was pressed to death. So it kind of has that double whammy of being a cemetery coupled with a location where Giles was executed. There's also Charter Street Cemetery with activity, and then there's also the Gardner Pingree House, which is where heinous murder happened in 1830. But a lot of people want to know about locations with ties to the Salem witch trials, and a lot of those locations are no longer standing, but the land is definitely haunted.
Well, what about Old Burial Point Cemetery? I know I read something about, I think a little girl has been seen there often.
A little girl's been seen there. There's the Charter Street Cemetery that is right by. Have you ever been to Salem before?
No, sir, but I really would love to.
Okay. I'm just trying to, because I some of these, I don't know where you're getting these questions from. Charter Street Cemetery is right by the Witch Trials Memorial, and so the cemetery is got a lot of haunted history to it. The ghost that actually haunts that cemetery is supposedly Mary Corey, who was Giles Corey's second wife. And the kid, I've heard that before, but I don't know where you got that from. There's been all sorts of stories from that cemetery. You have hundreds of, we have thousands of people that visit that cemetery on a regular basis.
Well, how about Murray's Pub? I read that has some paranormal activity to it too. And what was that?
That's closed. Yeah, they closed. But that was called Roosevelt's, and that was back in the day. That's right by the cemetery, Charter Street Cemetery, and it closed. It closed like a year ago. But the legend is that people were eating dinner at Roosevelt's, and while they were eating, there was like a rainstorm, and that these caskets kind of broke through the walls to go into the rest while they were eating, and they opened up. That's the legend, but that place has been closed for about a year.
Oh, okay. Well, what can you tell us about the Joshua Ward House? I've also read that it has a lot of paranormal activity going on in it.
Well, the Joshua Ward House is now a hotel. It's called the Merchant, and it's pretty much was the haunted house in Salem for many years. If you read my book, you would know that it's been converted to a hotel, but it's called the Merchant. I don't think people have reported any activity, but that is where Sheriff George Corwin was kept. That was his property, and he was kept beneath there before he was actually given a proper burial, because according to legend, that they were worried about the people that were upset with him were going to rip his body apart. So there's the whole George Corwin legend there. And also people have reported seeing like a witch-like entity in the house. That's when it was not a hotel. That was before. Now I've actually worked for the group that owns that hotel, and they don't really want to talk about the ghost lore associated with it. But there's no denying the fact that the Joshua Ward House has a haunted history.
Well, does the Hawthorne Hotel have any paranormal activity in it? And if so, what's going on there?
Okay, the Hawthorne Hotel is on the end of Essex Street. It is, yeah, I mean, like it was on Ghosts and Hunters, and it's been on various shows. According to the people that have stayed there, and I've actually investigated the sixth floor, there's a haunted room and there's definitely activity there. People have a sensation of like kind of like they're like it's a portal. They have a sensation of like sailor's feet, or kind of like kind of like there's movement in the top area. In my book, I talk about the backstory as to why it could be haunted before like that land. And there's been a lot of myths associated with why, like what was there. One of them was that it was Bridget Bishop's apple orchard, which is not true. But what it was before, there was a building before that would burn down over and over again on that land. So it's kind of like, some people think it's cursed land, but I also think that it's just a very old, very interesting hotel. And also hotels are just prone to be haunted, period, by the fact there's so many people coming in and out of it. I'm a big believer in sort of like the psychic imprints theory, or the stone tape theory, where things psychically imprint itself on the location.
Mm-hmm. Well, what location that you've been to, or have you had any, personal experience with any paranormal activity that, really, I don't know, maybe influenced you with your books and such?
In Salem, or just in general?
In Salem, in particular.
All right. Well, when I first started, I was giving tours in Salem, and a lot of the information that I got initially were from the people that were running the tours. And when I write my books, I spend years at a location. I learn every aspect of its history before I even consider writing a book. So I was giving tours long before I was writing the book Goes to Salem. So when I was first giving tours, I was told that one location, which is the Lyceum, which is Turner Seafood, was where Bridget Bishop's where her tavern was. And she's been portrayed in pop culture as sort of a loose woman who wore red clothing and, was kind of like a lady of the night kind of character, which is totally not true. And that there was another woman who was a tavern owner. Her name was Sarah Bishop. So I was basically saying, at this location that this is where her tavern was. This is where Bridget Bishop's tavern was. And then an apple mysteriously rolled out of nowhere. And I'm like, what's going on? I thought maybe someone else was playing a trick on me, but it turns out that there was no one there. So I think that Bridget Bishop was letting me know that this was her apple orchard and not her tavern. And you get a lot. The ghosts of Salem play with you. You get a lot of that, like a lot of weird things happening. If you get something wrong, they kind of let you know that you're getting it wrong. And I've learned to get the things right. So it's really important to respect these innocent people. I think you get a lot of people coming in from all over the country and all over the world who have kind of these preconceived ideas of what happened. They're like, where are the witches? Where are the witches? And there were no witches. So there may be witches here now who are modern day witches, but the people back then were innocent people that were just accused of witchcraft.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, what can you tell us about Seven Gables?
The House of Seven Gables. I gave tours there last year. House of Seven Gables was, it dates back to the 1600s. It's actually celebrating its 350-year anniversary this year. It's the Turner household. It was considered a mansion back in the day, but the reason why it got its name, the House of Seven Gables, because at one point it actually did have 7 gables on its house, on its roof. Nathaniel Hawthorne, he was associated with that. He wrote the book, The House of Seven Gables, which kind of made it famous, based on his kind of experiences with his relative, Susanna Ingersoll, who lived in that house. And it's kind of a mysterious house. It's got a lot of weird doors and passageways and closets that kind of don't make sense. It's been reinterpreted, so a lot of the architecture in that house, to me, is the most interesting aspects of it. There was a stairwell that's been rumored to be sort of like a stairwell for the like the Underground Railroad, or for the slaves to go up and down, but that was added in the early 1900s, so that was added for interpretation. So on that property, the Turner Ingersoll Mansion, people ask, is it haunted? Probably is, but truthfully, the property there's other houses on that property, in my opinion, are more haunted.
Okay.
Okay, what can you tell us about Wicked Good Bookstore?
Wicked Good Books is my favorite bookstore. It's on Essex Street. It's been around for a couple of years. That's where I did one of my first book signings there, gave tours out of that bookstore. It's in Derby Square, and again, everything pretty much in Salem has a haunted history to it. So is it probably haunted? Yeah. I mean, we have had investigators who went downstairs and they reported feeling like something was strangling them downstairs. Also, Wicked Good Books is it's on Essex Street, so there's a lot of witch shops and other things around them that it could be a ghost or an entity that's associated with other locations. So there's been reports of the tunnels below and potential hauntings from those tunnels beneath.
Wow. Well, what about the Bunghole Liquor building? I read that it had some activity going on in it too.
The what? Bunghole Liquor? Oh, yeah. You did a Google search, right? Bunghole Liquor. Yeah. Well, Bunghole Liquors was in my first book, Ghosts of Salem, and so that's right on Derby Street. And there was the backstory to that, and you probably got this from my article. It was a former embalming. They would embalm people back in the day in the Prohibition era. It was also a speakeasy. There are reports of a ghost cat there. A worker said that there was a ghost cat rubbing up against them, and there was also supposedly a woman that was coming in and out. Just to kind of reiterate, I think it's the ghosts of Salem, they're not bound at locations. So if say Bunghole Liquors reports a haunting or Wicked Good Books reports a haunting, it doesn't mean that it's haunted. It means that Salem is haunted. So anywhere you go in Salem, you're going to probably have a potential haunted encounter because it's so active.
Now, is any of these hauntings that you've experienced and other people experience, is it just within the people from 1600s, or are they any other people throughout time that's haunting the area?
Yeah, I mean they're all different times. I mean the hauntings I was referring to earlier, there's some stuff that are alluding to what happened in 1692, but there's a lot of modern day activity too. Again, the Gardner Pingree House on Essex Street, which is where a heinous murder happened in 1830, that's supposedly haunted by people from the 1800s. The Turner Ingersoll Mansion, that whole area, that's probably from the 1800s as well. So it's not just 1600s. In fact, probably the activity it's all different eras. There's all sorts of hauntings. There's shadow figures. There's child spirits. There's all sorts of things. So I just think that it's an aura of disaster, and that aura of disaster has kind of opened up a portal where everything is just kind of going haywire. You have hundreds of people visiting in October, and that's going to stir up activity. It's like stirring the pot. You're stirring up the activity with all these people coming and visiting, and the spirits are kind of getting, I guess, they're getting frustrated.
Okay. Well, I know you explained that your first time seeing a apparition was your grandfather. What other apparitions have you seen throughout your life at different locations? So don't you also investigate other locations other than Salem?
Yeah, I mean, I focus on New England. I've written books on Provincetown. I've written books on Boston Harbor, Cambridge, 13 Most Haunted Inns of New England. But, sir, I'm going to cut this short because I really don't feel like you did your research. So I'm sorry about that, but I don't think that you did your research to be able to talk to me over the phone. But anyway, have a great day.
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess that's it for us tonight. And if anybody was offended by that, I apologize. I do my research. I worked hard on this. I was trying to, get the impression of, witches and, explain about them and then build up to talk about Salem. And and I thought that we were doing a good job as far as what he wanted. But
well, we do have a caller. We could ask their opinion about the show.
Yeah, let's get this caller on. They've been listening to it. Let's see what they have to say. Hello, caller. Sorry about the interview that apparently didn't go good on his end, but I thought it went fine on my end. What do you think about the show? The 804 number. Okay. What's with the giggle? Hi.
We need some positive feedback.
I'm kind of confused.
Don't feel bad. I am too. I mean,
we are too. We're over here like, what?
I did my other research, and yes, I Googled a lot of it. I went to places where, the top 10, top 20, this, that about Salem. And,
but the thing is that like it doesn't matter. Like there's other people listening to the show too. Like my mom, for instance, my mom knows what witchcraft is, but she's only asking what is witchcraft for the audience, for his opinion. So like it's not. Oh well, sucks for him, I guess.
I guess he was offended because I haven't read any of his books, but and I'm going to tell everybody out there right now, if you want to be on my show and you want me to read your book, send me a book. I mean, damn. There's other guests of mine that sent me books to read, and hell, I got 5 of them in my van right now that I'm reading.
I don't know. That was crazy. I'm here. I had my head laid down, and as soon as he said, "I'm gonna cut this short," because you haven't done your, my head popped up like, did he really just say that?
That was very rude.
I've done my research. I mean, that's just like I asked one question. Let me look back here. The Witchcraft Act. That they actually did pass a Witchcraft Act.
There's many. There's actually more than one, because there was a Witchcraft Act like in like the 1500s and then it got repealed, and then like it got back again. It came back again.
I mean, I was trying to build up the history and stuff like that, and then get into the paranormal.
You got to set a platform. I mean, not everybody is well versed in certain areas, and we try to get our listeners engaged. We start small, we build up. Build it up. You build the intensity up.
Right.
And
but again,
information. I mean, he flat out said, talk to me about the paranormal and all that. Well, okay, then explain these places to me.
And then he didn't really want to elaborate on his experiences. Oh, well.
Well, I apologize, everybody.
It's an interview, meaning going to be asked questions.
I had a guest like this once before, and they cut it short because they're arrogant.
I asked a question about chemtrails because he was talking about, government stuff, and I kind of threw that in there, and he kind of tried to laugh at me over it. I was like, okay. And I actually had mad respect for him up to that point. Now I don't even look at his stuff anymore. Fuck him.
Damn.
Well, at least we got an hour show out of it. I was worried about that. Because he was answering them questions fast and being an asshole about it. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, might as well.
I mean, he won't come on the show no more, but that's fine. We got tons of people who love this show and love to come on. So
what I think it was is that we were stepping outside the box, which made him have to think, and he wanted to just elaborate on things like he probably had a rhythm going where he's used to saying the same thing over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So we made him step outside his box. So he actually had to think.
I mean, damn, I haven't read his book, so it ain't like I'm sitting here going to read it and not doing research. No, you want me to read your book? Send me a book. I'm not going to buy it. Why I got to buy it? I'm putting you on the air. Everybody else sends me books for free and autographs.
Oh.
I mean, damn, come on. Don't be a dick. You want to know what kind of show I run? This is the kind of fucking show I run. And I hope you listen to this show, which I know he won't, but if he ever does or his friends listen to it, you can tell him. Mr. Sam Baltrusis, whatever the fuck his last name is a dick.
My daughter's like,
Well, I mean, why are you coming up with this snooty attitude, man?
I knew it was going this way. I was like, I need
I
duct
can
tape.
feel it. I was texting my mom during the show.
He was like, don't do it.
I said,
I was like a
I
volcano.
I texted her around 8:20. I said, he's kind of being rude. Like, we asked him questions because we want to know more. Like, I don't see why he's getting mad. Like, if you didn't want to answer questions, then don't, an interview.
Especially when this is your area. I mean, you wrote books about witchcraft. The witch trials. Salem. You wrote books about the hauntings. I mean, that you should know your shit.
Well, not only that, he kept saying that this is what is said and possibly could be true, and it possibly isn't true. Well, then your book possibly may not be true.
Yeah. Have you read my book? Well, in my book, that's what I kept saying. In my book, I say, well, that's great. I don't have a problem with that.
I could write a book and put anything in there, too.
But damn, don't be a dick.
I thought we were very nice to him.
Y'all were rude.
I was professional to the end, even though I didn't want to. Oh, man, I'll sit here like,
if you notice, I stopped asking questions.
Well, I mean, there wasn't no point because I didn't want him to go after you. You got anything to say, you say for me. And, damn, what else does he want?
I don't know. Oh, well. Overdone with gone.
These are one of these great shows I always love. Granted, we've only had 3 of them in the past 3 years, so it's one a year.
So, how was your day, girl?
Tiring, but it was straight.
Hopefully the next time you tune in, it won't be so rough.
I was excited. I was like, oh, cool, this guy who, does, digs into, the witchcraft stuff. He's gonna be spitting some stuff at us. Maybe, I'm going to learn something from him, da-da-da-da. But after the first couple times he started having rude comments, I stopped listening to him. I started getting on my phone. I'm not even going to lie.
That was very rude of him. I mean, I don't give a shit who you are, how many books you wrote, or how many times you've been on TV. You don't need to be a dick about it. So, I guess I'll end the show. A good hour show.
All right. Love you, Deja.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, no
have
problem.
a good one.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I want to thank Sam for gracing us with his presence. For coming on the show. I was going to say we have nothing but respect for him, like I do with everybody, but I'm not feeling the respect. Because he didn't respect us.
No, he didn't.
So, normally this is the part where I say I welcome, him back anytime. Well, no, he'll never. No, that's done. But anyway, our guest for next Thursday night, November 15th, will be paranormal investigators Aaron Oakes, Dan Box, and Jay Wyrick. I hope I'm saying that right.
Mm-hmm.
Of Supernatural Serenity and Lone Wolf Investigations. So I guess we'll be talking about the paranormal next week, like we was trying to do today. But that's it. Y'all have a good night. Be safe this weekend. Everybody take care. You got anything to say, Melinda?
Nope.
Not even a night, y'all.
Good night, everyone.
It's kind of hard to give after that shit.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be, yeah.
Okay. Y'all have a good one. That's it for us tonight. I want to thank everyone that took the time to listen in. I'd like to give a big shout out to the Vibe Radio Network and to Ryan for putting up with us. Also, to all the first responders and our men and women in the armed services, thank you for your service and the sacrifices that you and your families make every day to keep our great nation safe. Tune in next week to another exciting show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everyone can go to our Facebook page Within the Chaos, and don't forget to like our page to see upcoming guests along with past shows, postings, or you can also go to my website at www.blackdiamondps.org or blogtalkradio.com/Vibe Radio Network. Also, we have a YouTube channel, so go to YouTube, look up Within the Chaos for past shows. Thanks again. Until next week, everyone have a safe weekend and have a good night. And love you all. Be careful out there.
I'm sorry. But I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have
has the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!